Good morning and welcome back to the Celtic channel, the One Celtic Fans View. I'd really appreciate it if you give this video a thumbs up because it does help with the algorithm and help it get out to as many Celtic supporters as possible. This is what it means to be Celtic. Let's get back to some Celtic news this morning, but first of all, the SPFL and the SWPL, so that's the Scottish Professional Football League and the Scottish Women's Professional League, put out a joint statement yesterday. And given the terrible events, the statement went on to say, given the terrible events in the past 2 weeks in Israel and Palestine, our thoughts are with those who continue to suffer from all this enduring conflict. The SPFL and the SWPL will be supporting the British Red Cross emergency appeal to aid those urgently in need. And then they have a link down below. Donate for more information about the British Red Cross emergency appeal, please visit. And then there's a link that takes you to Israel and occupied Palestine territories, understanding the escalating conflict between them. That's all I'm going to say about it, and it's they have put that statement out, and then the first comment on the tweet that they put out was Doncaster out. Let's get back to the Celtic news. The big Celtic news this morning is obviously Brendan Rodgers declares that he doesn't pretend to care about his players. He does care about his players, talking about the fact that he had ongoing talks with Israel winger Leal Abada with regards to the Middle East conflict. Brendan Rodgers says he believes that the close bond and unity with the squad is what helps them perform to their peak. Rodgers was always felt that it was the best way to approach when they're in a time of need. It's not just in terms of off the pitch. Off-field issues also matter to me, said Brendan Rodgers. He wanted to be there for Leal Abada. Another Celtic news, Brendan Rodgers, as far as Chris Sutton has been talking about the fact that Brendan will be loving the fact that just over a year, the team from across the road have seen Giovanni Van Bronckhorst sat, Michael Beale, the mole, come in, and now they've got Felipe Clementine, oh my darling Clementine, in the Ibrox door. Chris Sutton said, like I said last week, that the Celtic manager will be relishing the opportunity to throw a spanner in the works of another Rangers manager. The Belgian, orange chocolate, the Belgian will need to get the respect he deserves. Unlike Beale, Clementine has a proven track record of winning titles in Belgium. And that's a bit like saying Rangers won titles years ago. Anyway, he seems straight down line talker and a realist, the way he's spoken about the Rangers situation. He says, but at the end of the day, I'm not here to sort of talk about them. He says the fact is Clementine and the Rangers players are going to get a little bit of a bounce. But the proof is in the pudding, of course. He says we'll see how they react. And Celtic are top of the league, looking down on the Rangers. Celtic players, Brendan Rodgers has been talking about some Celtic players that aren't in the team, and everyone's been saying, where's Marco? Where is Marco? But the Celtic boss said yesterday in the press conference, said, look, I think it's just time. I think he will admit to himself it's been a really hard transition for him. Just the intensity of the game is totally different from what he's been used to. It's been a challenge for him in training. You remember that he came to the club with an injury when he actually signed for Celtic. It's always difficult when you're a new player coming into the club, said Brendan Rodgers. When you come in with an injury and through pre-season, you're into September, he's just starting to find his feet in the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's going to take him more time. But I'm not in any big rush for Marco. So Marco's obviously one for the future. We're all saying we need to get this guy in and get him on the pitch. Brendan Rodgers obviously sees him one for the future. You remember, he is just a young guy. We put a lot of our own young Scottish players out on loan. So he's not going to rush him, and he's just going to let him work his way into the first team action at his own pace. The team can quickly produce players, they say, but it's taken a little bit of a time and a little bit longer with Marco to get up to the intensity of the game. It's totally different where he has come from. Obviously, you've got Dyson Maeda and Lewis Palmer that plays in those positions before he can even get near it. Another player that he feels sorry for, he says, is Yuki Kobayashi. Kobayashi is a player that was brought in by the previous manager. And he says, look, we've got 11 players. The squad is too big. That is the reality of it. I can't fit in all the players. even into the match day squad. When you look at it, I think Celtic have 29 first team players, and never mind youth players that have been sent out on loan. Is the squad too big? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, because let's face it, we did buy in a lot of players during, and we never expected to buy in 10 players in the last transfer window. It was not needed at Celtic. We needed to buy in quality, and what we did is we brought in quantity. Is that future planning? Is it planning for the future so we don't have to spend as much money? Are the board thinking 2 seasons ahead? They're thinking, yeah, we've got the Champions League money this year, we've got the Champions League money next year. If we win the league, it would take a total absolute meltdown if we didn't win the league this season. But then they're maybe thinking the year after that, where we won't get automatic qualification into the Champions League, and then the board thinking, right, we're going to take a 50 million hit that year, so maybe we should spend some money now while we've got it and get these players so that they are ready for 2 seasons' time. What do you think about that theory, Celtic fans? Tell me in the comments. Brendan Rodgers went on to say about Kobayashi, he's certainly someone that's really professional. In fairness to Yuki, now this was a really interesting comment from Brendan Rodgers yesterday at the interview press conference. He said he's certainly someone that's really professional, in fairness to Yuki. He says he would have went out on loan. He just got injured before he went out. He's in training very well. He's not doing anything wrong. His attitude has been fantastic and working hard. But we only have a limited number of centre halves that we can play. So even though at the start of the season when we had well, to be fairness, we did buy into players. So even at the start of the season, Kobayashi was getting nowhere near the first team squad because we brought in Rocky and Gustav. And that's an interesting one, that he was actually set to go out on loan. So what does that say about his future at Celtic? It could be the thing that he maybe goes out on loan at Christmas and the winter one, January. He's got a contract in Celtic until January 2028, so we're going to kind of be stuck with the player. He's obviously unfancied at Celtic, the fact that he was going to go out on loan. So that's probably a big announcement by Brendan Rodgers, the fact that Yuki Kobayashi was going to go out on loan this season until he got injured. And that's something that Celtic haven't spoke about so far this season. Tell me what you think about that, Celtic fans, because obviously people were saying that Kobayashi is one player that should maybe be given a chance. But Brendan Rodgers doesn't seem to think so. Anyway, there's another player, Matt O'Reilly, has been also talking yesterday. Matt O'Reilly explained how his role has changed under Brendan Rodgers. Obviously, the Danish midfield player called up to the Danish squad when he was on holiday in that lovely little island just off the mainland of Spain that is a little hideaway for all Celtic-related people. His form in the Premiership is actually top scorer with 5 goals. And he was named September's Player of the Month, Matt O'Reilly. He's one player that is just going from strength to strength. He had an £11 million offer put in for him. Was it 10, 11 million? I can't remember. Is that 10, 11 million pound offer put in for him by Leeds in the summer? But he said, look, it's difficult to put your finger on it, said Matt O'Reilly. He says, since Ange Postecoglou days, he said, it wasn't bad last season, but performances have certainly improved since the summer. My role has changed a tiny little bit, said Matt O'Reilly ahead of the game this weekend. He says, defensively, I'm probably in our box more than I was last season. Offensively, I'm also in the other box. So he's turning into the player that Scott Brown was in his younger days. He's a total box-to-box midfield player, and that's pretty much how Scott Brown played. So if he can become half the player and dominate games the way that Scott Brown dominated games towards his end of his career, we've got a really fantastic player on our hands in midfield. And it's then going to ask the question, will Paulo Bernardo ever get a chance? Matt O'Reilly did go on to say, getting into the box is a big one. I'm just constantly trying to get there. So my role hasn't changed too much, but I've slightly got a little more license to go forward. Well, I've got more defensive responsibilities also. So that's an interesting one for Matt O'Reilly. I think the big news of the day was obviously the Kobayashi one. Kobayashi doesn't look as if he's going to get anywhere near the Celtic first team, and by all accounts it looks like he might go out on loan in the next transfer window. So tell me your thoughts with that. Thank you for all the comments on the videos last night. I'm not going to get to read them all because there's about 260 comments. We are a club open to all, and unless it seems that you have a different political view that goes along with the agenda. So much for it being a club open to all. But let's be fair, we've got Celtic fans all around the world. Peace is one thing that we call it for. peace and unity to all human beings. So on that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, all around the world.